Hey everyone, this is Alex and welcome to another Elder Scrolls Online guide video. In this video we will be talking about the different weapon and armor as well as jewelry, enchantments and glyphs, and we will go through all of the possible combinations, and this should help all the new players as well as intermediate players to get a little bit of a better understanding of how each glyph functions in the game. So it just so happens that I have all the essence runes in my bank, as well as potency and quality. So in order to craft an enchantment you need potency, essence and aspect. Highest level enchantments will be using the yellow rune, yellow aspect one. And potency, Itade and Repora are the ones that you want for highest champion rank 160. So let's start with Itade and yellow one, and let's go through all the possible combos. I'm going to try and provide you with my opinions on every single glyph and when it can be useful and when it cannot be useful. Like for example this one, this is a completely useless glyph that you do not want to put on your jewelry at any point. Frost resistance. All the resistance glyphs for jewelry are generally considered to be useless. Maybe in the future this will change, but as of now this will at most give you about 660 points is about 1%, so about 2% for less than 5%, maximum 5% frost resistance, and that's pretty much useless, so we're gonna skip that one. This one deals damage and restores stamina. It's not bad glyph nowadays because weapon traits are different. So for all the new players you gotta look in this corner to see if a glyph is for weapon, jewelry or armor, and all the damaging glyphs like this ones are for weapons usually. So restore stamina, deal a little bit of magic damage. I use this I believe even now actually. I have the Magicka version because I have an infused staff, so all of these glyphs are not bad when you put them on an infused staff to reduce the cooldown of the enchantment, to restore and complement your resources a little bit, so that's not bad at all. It's a very decent glyph. This is a very good glyph for sustain if you're a stamina character, let's say in PvP mostly. If you have a lot of stamina recovery there is a better option, but this is your go-to glyph if you need more stamina sustain. This is a very popular glyph in PvE because reducing physical and spell resistance by 5 seconds can help your whole group do more damage to a boss, for example. So if you're a tank in PvE, this can be very useful for your weapons. In PvP there are better alternatives, so do not use this in PvP, only in PvE. Hakejo is the most expensive essence rune, and with Itade it gives a special glyph, almost 7k magic damage to undead and Daedra. In PvE this can be very decent depending on your weapon trait and your overall build. In PvP, as good as this might look like, it's not that good because first of all, if you're fighting someone who's not an undead or a Daedra, you will not do anything as far as I know. And second, the damage in PvP is cut in half, so this will not be 7k, it will be 3.5k. Then you have resistances, champion points, all that stuff. So even though it looks great on paper, it's not anything extraordinary. The next one, Haoko, disease resistance, pretty much useless for your jewelry, do not craft this. We have reduced cost of bash and block. This is very popular for tanks in PvP and PvE. One or two of these can help. I would say up to one maybe in PvP, but in PvE you can go with more. Then we have poison resistance, again useless. Spell resistance, also useless. Now here we have magic damage and Magicka, same like stamina, and I have this on my staff now, but I do plan to change it. I was shuffling a couple of different glyphs for my weapon, but this can be good. I have an infused staff where I can put this and restore more Magicka. This goes up to about 400 and almost 500, something like that. Plus the cooldown is shorter, so you can really complement your sustain based on the sets that you're using. For example, I'm a sorcerer and I'm using Bloodthorn, which has a similar effect, so this amplifies it pretty much. Very good choice. Reduce Magicka cost of spells, same like Stamina one, very good for Magicka characters, but if you have a lot of Magicka recovery, or sets that add a lot more Magicka recovery, like for example Lich or something like that, then there is a better alternative. Shock resistance, pretty much useless. This one is not bad at all, like the previous ones. You can restore more health, because you do get more health than Magicka and Stamina, so it's not bad. With certain builds it can be very good. Then we have Oblivion damage. This has been nerfed. It used to be better in the past. Now the value is lower, and rightfully so, because it cannot be mitigated by anything other than the champion system. So it's not bad, but I would probably favor the ones that restore magic and stamina, even the health one. Then we have the reduced weapon and spell damage for your target. If you want to debuff in PvP, this can sometimes be useful, but there are better alternatives. So it's not completely useless, but it's not that great either. Then we have the cooldown of potions reduction. This used to be a very interesting combo with some builds in the past, but as far as I know, this used to be bugged before. I don't know if it's even fixed at this point. It's worth testing. Otherwise, it's a medium quality glyph, I would say. It can work with some builds, but on most builds you will benefit more from other glyphs. Flame resistance, again, useless. And physical resistance, totally useless. So that's it for the Itade, the one that functions negatively, I believe. Now the positive one that reinforces enchantments. Let's start with, again, Frost one. Frost damage. Glyphs that deal elemental damage nowadays are not bad because they can proc status effects, and this was changed recently with some patches. So Frost damage status effect is minor maim, I believe, something like that. 15% less damage for your opponent. And I also think that the proc chance on weapons and glyphs like this is about 20%. So if you have something like a charged weapon, let's say a charged staff or anything else, then it can make sense to use this to do more specific elemental damage. And if you use something like frost damage, it will make you more tanky because your opponent will do less damage. So it has its own uses. It's a very good combo nowadays. Classic stamina glyph. I usually only use it on my stamina characters, on small pieces, because on bigger pieces I use something else. But if you're in PvE, you can also go with full stamina glyphs. It's totally fine. For PvP, I do recommend the 3-stat one, which I will show you in a minute. Denima, stamina recovery, and this is the alternative that I've mentioned before. If you have a lot of stamina recovery, let's say you're a Bosmer Nightblade, like for example my stamina Nightblade, I use one of these on my necklace. It can really help with your sustain, and even one glyph like that can really help when it gets multiplied by all the percents, all the champion system. And if you're a vampire like I am on that character, it can really make the difference. Literally one glyph makes the difference between sustaining with no problems or having a little bit of problems with sustain against good players. Then we have the armor one, and this will grant you a damage shield. Now this, most players will tell you that this is useless, but it's not totally useless if you have a combo with something like, let's say, an infused staff. If you notice, the infused weapon trait is very good for enchantments. It buffs everything up, reduces the cooldown, and this glyph also has its uses in such circumstances. You can put this, let's say I'm a sorcerer like I am, you can put this on a back bar, let's say infuse the restoration staff, and when you're shield stacking, if your shields are on back bar, you can, as normally players would do light attacks and heavy attacks. You will also get additional damage shield, so about 2k for PvP and a little bit of champion system. You can get a couple of thousand more shield point values, so it's not totally useless. It can be very good, but again, as shown with the other ones, there are better alternatives. Now Hakejo is the 3-stat prismatic glyph, and this glyph for stats, it will give you the most stats overall than any other stats glyph. So if you simply want to push all of your stat pools as high as you can, you go with full Hakejo enchantments like this. And on my stamina characters in PvP as DPS characters, I always put this on, let's say, headpiece, chest and legs. Those are the big pieces, because on the small pieces I usually want to get a little bit more stamina, so I'll focus on this. But even then you can also go with full Hakejo ones. It's not a problem. Very good glyph. There's a reason why it costs 9k for the essence one. Then we have Haoko, disease damage. This is very good nowadays if you want to proc the Major Defile status effect, which will reduce healing taken by 30% as well as health recovery, and you can also boost it up in the champion system. On my stamina characters I believe it's about 42% total value, so if you're gonna play a stamina character in PvP you definitely want to consider this for your weapons. Weapon damage to your bash ability, as far as I know this is useless. I don't know anyone who uses this. It will simply bash the damage output of your I believe it's just bashing, like with right mouse click. I'm sorry, left mouse click with blocking simply buffs up the damage a little bit. There used to be a bug years ago when this was adding more damage and people used to bash all the time to literally try and kill you with just bashes, so it was bugged, but nowadays it's useless. Then we have poison damage. Disease is better, but if you want to proc that poison status effect you can do that as well, but disease simply outperforms it. Spell damage, if you want more spell damage in general to buff up your damaging abilities, put this on jewelry. Classic stat glyph, Magicka, nothing much to say. If you're a Magicka character you might go with full Magicka ones. If you want a little bit more health and stamina, 3-stat ones on big pieces or all pieces is totally fine. Magicka recovery, same like stamina recovery. If your character has a lot of Magicka recovery with certain sets or percents, like passives, you might want to put this on your necklace, for example. It can help. Shock damage, also very good nowadays for Magicka characters, and even stamina ones actually, because shock can also proc I can't remember what the name was, minor vulnerability I think. You get 8% more damage when you proc the shocks, concussed, when you proc the concussed status effect. It used to be different before, but now it's 8% more damage taken for a few seconds, so it's very good nowadays, like disease for example. Maximum health, I usually don't use this on any of my characters, but if you're a tank, you want to push some health points up, you can do that as well. Health recovery, I would say stay away from this one, especially in PvP, because Major Defile can now also debuff your health regen, and this is because it's designed to combat certain builds with extremely high health recovery sets, like for example choking or something like that, that will promote weird gameplay. That's why the Defile effect debuffs that, so I would say stay away from this one. Increase weapon spell damage for 5 seconds. This is not bad, a lot of players use this, especially in PvP, but as we've seen with different trait changes for the weapons, other glyphs also have a lot more potential nowadays, so it's good but not the best one anymore. Then we have potion effects duration increase. Again, this sounds nice with certain builds. It used to be good in the past if it was not bugged, but nowadays you have the alchemy, I mean you always had it, but the alchemy passive that extends potion effect duration, you don't really need it. And then we have flame damage. If you want to do a little bit more damage to vampires and stuff like that, you can go with Hakejo and Itadeb to do more damage to them, but this is flame in general, so you can do it to all opponents. You can proc the burning status effect, but out of all the status effects, I would say disease and shock and maybe even frost are the best, and this one will be last. And the last essence rune that we have, weapon damage. If you want more weapon damage, put this on. If you're a DPS character or in PvP as well, I usually have it on at least 2 pieces of my jewelry, so for example rings, and on my necklace I go with a sustain glyph, like something like stamina recovery, and that's it. So I believe I've covered all the essence runes. I'll try to count them all, both here and on the websites. I believe there's 18 of them, something like that. But if I missed anything, feel free to let me know, and if you got any questions about any specific glyphs or runes, enchanting in general, feel free to ask in the comments below. I will be happy to talk to you about it and help you out with whatever you need. So thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. As I said, if you got any questions, feel free to let me know. And if you want to see more videos about the Elder Scrolls Online, subscribe to the channel. There will be at least a couple of videos a week. And that's it basically. So As always, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you around, guys.